Welcome to Small Venue Music. Our podcast showcases the amazing local musicians and incredible small music venues right here in Richmond, Virginia. Join us each episode as we talk to musicians, venue owners, and even fans to help everyone get a better understanding of what makes our local music scene so special. Whether you're a musician, a fan of music, or just curious about the local music scene, we think you'll really enjoy the show. In this episode of Small Venue Music, we'll be featuring Hold My Beer. They are a high-energy guitar rock-focused band that plays some of the best music from the 80s, 90s, all the way to today's hits. The band is full of technically gifted musicians, all based right here in Richmond, Virginia. They feature Troy Miller on lead guitar and vocals, Lee Brooks on drums, Delayne Chowen on keyboards and vocals, Chris Dabney on guitar and vocals, and Gary Baily on bass. Joining us on today's podcast will be both Troy Miller and Lee Brooks, and today's show will be hosted by Don Busick. We hope you enjoy the show. All right, hey guys, thanks so much. Welcome to what I think you know is the second episode of Small Venue Music, and I got to tell you, when you guys Hold My Beer agreed to be on the show, I was so excited. So I think you both know I'm a huge fan of the band, and I was really excited to have you on the show. So thanks so much for doing this with me.
Thank you for having us, for real.
Awesome. And hey, thanks so much for doing this in your attic. For folks who might be listening to this on audio, I'm going to be flashing up the wall of guitars that is in the other room. And I know there'll be a lot of guitarists who are watching this show, and they're all going to be drooling over what you see in the other room. So I can't wait to show everybody. But hey, thanks so much for doing this. Hey, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about Hold My Beer. But before we do, I want to spend a little bit of time with you guys talking about sort of how you first became musicians. So maybe I can start with you, Lee.
Yes, sir.
When did you first pick up the sticks, go way back in time, and how'd you learn to play?
I was 8 years old, so
All right.
I have been playing probably longer than a lot of people have been alive. So yeah, I did start when I was 8. I started on a snare drum and a little practice pad.
Yeah.
And it is... it just sounds like a thud when you hit it with sticks, but I learned rudiments way back then. And I'll be honest, I played from 8 to 10, and at 10 years old, I said, this is kind of boring, because it really does it's kind of boring doing rudiments. And I lived in Roanoke at that time, and then my family moved to Richmond, Virginia when I was about 11.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of looking for something to do. I was a new guy in town, didn't have friends at that point, or many friends at that point, so I remember my brother came home with an album from Rush, and it was Exit Stage Left.
Oh, yeah.
And he was playing that album, and I heard this gargantuan drum solo. And honestly, that sold me. So literally had moved to Richmond, and so I picked the drums up. I actually saved all my money, worked a newspaper route till I could buy my own drums, and been playing ever since.
That's fantastic. You bought your own first drum set.
Yeah, and I actually do think that made it more meaningful to me, because I used my own money to purchase it and go after it. So
awesome.
Yeah.
And Troy, how about you? So we all know you as quite the shredder, and many of us are envious of those skills. So how'd you learn to play? Did you take lessons, or did you do it all by ear?
I took lessons when I was first grade.
Yeah.
And it was not good for me. I couldn't read music. My hands didn't work the way I wanted them to. And then I heard John Denver. So, I'm a shredder, right? And I'm listening to John Denver. So I heard John Denver, Country Roads, and Rocky Mountain High.
Yeah.
So I got the songbook. And then I started to listen to it and play it. And this is probably when I was, 7 or 8 or 9. So I started getting back into it.
Yeah.
And then what happened to me, very similar moment, is, except for mine was with Ace Frehley.
Bigger than it was John Denver.
He rocked.
Yeah, that song really rocks.
Yeah. So this is your first rock and roll.
Yeah, first rock and roll thing.
To,
yeah, and I went from Country Roads to Shock Me, and it was that was it. I heard the guitar solo and Shock Me, and that's all I wanted to do.
Oh, nice. So did you learn it all by ear then, or
everything's by ear?
you
got Mr. Schooled, man. Yeah, I'm over here just winging everything, and he's going slow down, play it right, Troy. So yeah, it's great.
All right, so both of you take me back to, and I doubt it was together, but what was your first time playing live? And by live, I mean in front of someone other than your friends,
mom.
like when you felt the nerves of like, I'm in front of a group of people in a band. So what was your first experience?
My very first experience. So you mentioned lessons. I didn't talk about my lessons. I actually did take lessons in Richmond from a guy named Jay Armentrout for. Did you know Jay?
No,
Okay.
but I was just thinking he'd be glad to hear his name.
But he's passed on at this point. But I took lessons from him for about 4 or 5 years. He was at Southern Music Center. And he actually gave me my first live experience. I went to see him play. I think he was playing at a wedding. And I had been taking some lessons from him. And he said, well, why don't you come out and see me play so you can see what I do in a band?
Yeah.
And he stuck me on stage.
Wow. No pressure.
No pressure, yeah, right. And I believe it was a Rolling Stones song. And he just said, just play. And then, of course, as I'm playing, he's like, no, do this.
I was going to ask, how did it go? How did it feel?
Oh, I loved it. That's,
Yeah,
I mean, that's,
you were hooked.
again, yeah, I was hooked, very hooked. So
Awesome. How about you, Troy?
Yeah, it was 8th grade talent show.
Really?
It was great. Yeah, 8th grade talent show. And I played Dirty Deeds and Johnny Be Good.
All right.
And that was really cool. It was like,
did you sing or play guitar?
oh no, I hate singing. No, I just play guitar. We had a singer and, had the bandana, and this little 8th grader dude was up there just wailing away.
Nice.
It was cool. But I had a great time doing that.
Yeah.
That
Did the crowd love it?
Yeah, it was
Oh,
cool. We had black lights. You couldn't even really see me. It was just nothing but black lights on the stage.
The same thing. Were you hooked after that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I just played nonstop after that.
Very good. I love hearing the early stories from folks. So let's switch over to talk about Hold My Beer. And so we're going to spend a lot of time talking about, I know you guys have a long history of playing together in bands throughout the years. And so, all the way to your old band, Leon Millmore. And I'm sure at some other time we could do an entire podcast on some of your old bands.
Right.
But for today, let's stick with Hold My Beer. And I'd love to hear a little bit of the backstory on, how did it all come together? Like, how'd you guys, who knew who, and kind of, how'd the whole thing get started?
I guess I'll start with that.
Yeah.
It was funny because our lead singer, keyboard player, Delayne Chowen, actually was a worship leader at one of the churches around here. And he's been in a lot of different bands as well. But he was, a lot of musicians, when they stop playing and that stuff, they go to the church gig or whatever. And he calls me up and he goes, hey, we would like to rock it up one time. Do you want to get in a band? He goes, I got a bass player. His name's Baily. He's played in a lot of different bands. And so we got together and we started playing some of those songs. And it was great. But again, you kind of mentioned some of the older bands. I took a long hiatus. It was 8 years that I really played. We would play with the old band, Leon Millmore, like once a year. But even that stopped. And so I was like, all of a sudden, I got the itch.
Yeah.
And so it was great playing for church. But, I'm in a band called Hold My Beer for a reason. So I really enjoy having a beer while I play and just having a great time. And all the other bands I've been in have been like original band, music. And it was great to say, why don't we just start being a bar band?
Yeah.
And we had a drummer, but he couldn't do it. And I had been talking about Lee forever. I was like, the best drummer I know in Richmond, in the region, we can get. And they were like, okay, try. And I called Lee up. And the conversation was, dude, I'm in 3 bands. And I was like, yeah, but come on, man.
And I was thinking worst guitar player in the region at the time.
Please.
Amen to that. I'll go with that.
No, he describes it well. So he called me up, and I did respond. I'm like, I play in 3 bands already. And he sold me. He said, hey, it's just going to be chill. We're going to hang out. We're going to play. We're going to have a good time. We're going to play some bars, drink some beer, and that's it. And I was like, all right, we'll give it a shot. And we got together and jammed and had a good time. So we just kept with it.
So tell me how, I always find the early days of bands are some of the hardest because you're trying to find a group of guys you can gel with, and then you're trying to get enough of a set list to really feel like you're ready. How quick did it click for you guys?
I think it was pretty quick. The other is funny because we had to get one more piece to it, which is Chris Dabney, who's the other guitar player who's phenomenal. And we had to get that gel together. And once we all came in, what's great about this band is I truly think when you get our age, but you've been playing as long as we have, the egos are gone.
Yeah.
Right? And everybody just kind of fits in and says, this is what I do well, and I just want to play that part. And so I think probably the first 2 practices, especially the only way we could get him was play every Rush song that I could possibly sing.
That's right.
And once we did that, we were fine. Because
Yeah.
Chris is a huge Rush fan. Gary's a huge Rush fan. So as long as we keep that in there, I think they're not going to leave.
That was smart. That was a good play.
Yeah, I was strategizing.
So tell me the name. How did it come to be?
Cheers,
by the way.
Yeah, cheers. So the name, that's the hardest part about ever having a band is trying to find a name. The funniest story, it's a little backstory, and I'll try to go really fast. My kid actually came up with the name, but it's a name that happens all the time, right?
Yeah.
Everybody, whenever you're going to do something, most of the time ridiculous.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, we were at a Goo Goo Dolls concert, and this guy, we were right up front. It was at the beach, so the whole concert's on the beach, and I see this guy run from the back of the stage, and I swear he thinks he's at a Lamb of God concert. He does a stage dive straight out, and everybody just parts and falls straight out. Emergency has to come. And my son looked at me and goes, "You should name the band Hold My Beer," because that's exactly what he did. That's how and then I started pushing the name. I'm like, this is, an HMB just fits. It rolls.
Did you embrace it?
How can you not?
How can you not?
It's got beer in the name.
I mean, it's such a good fit for you guys. So
absolutely.
I love it. All right, share with me, I'll say your first set of shows. And tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like what went really well, and it's like maybe pick your first two or three shows.
You can take this one. You take the first show.
You go first, Lee.
First show, I remember Troy being really stressed, and it had nothing to do with playing the music at all, and everything to do with the sound system, because it's our own sound system. We have a fair amount of equipment, speakers, lights, and to get it all running the first time, kind of on the fly, that was a challenge, and he really took it on himself. So that was probably the most stressful part of the show. Once we got to playing music, it was fine. Although I do remember your pedal. I think it's a tuner type pedal.
That was the second show. Yeah.
Second show, tuner type pedal. That if you depress it, I believe it changes the key of your guitar. And I think it was depressed for about half of the first set. So he would play in one key thinking it was right, figure out it's wrong, and then switch his hands to another key. And he kept doing that for about half the set. That was it. That was entertaining.
Just thinking about that now is making me sweat. I am sweating again.
Yeah. I mean, Troy, technology problems have got to be the worst, right?
And technology has gotten easier. It's a blessing. And then with the Wi-Fi hooking up as your mixer into your speakers, back in the old days, the biggest thing you had to worry about was cables going wrong. And you had to find that cable and switch it out. Now it's not only that, it's the Wi-Fi, it's pitch pedals. Back in the day, there was no pitch transpose pedals,
Yeah.
So there's all this great technology we make. Everything sounds so cool, but it's also just the biggest nightmare. And learning how to do that was something that we all had to get with.
Now, am I right? Was the first show the Poorhouse, and the second one
Poorhouse?
Oh, they're both the Poorhouse. Okay, yeah.
That's kind of our home.
Yeah,
Love that place.
Yeah, well, I've seen you guys a bunch there, and
I
can. How did it feel once things started to click live?
I think the third show. Well, actually, even after that pedal.
Yeah.
In each show, it's funny because I don't know about you. I didn't expect that many people to show up. To be quite honest, like the first show, which was really stressful, is because there's line out the door.
I remember.
And I was like, uh-oh. And then we had this warm-up group that had to get on, and we had to make them sound good, too. Which is a whole nother story.
That's another whole story. Another podcast.
It's a whole nother podcast. But I mean, when it clicks, and we're having just what we talked about, we're having a great time. I mean, sometimes I'll look back at Lee, and I'm just like, I've been doing this with him forever, right? Yeah. And I'm having more fun than I could ever have.
I think I went to the first three shows, and if I remember correctly, was it Poorhouse, and then was it Atlas?
We did play Atlas.
We had COVID. COVID stopped us for a long time.
Yeah, stopped for a while. Because I felt like the Atlas show was almost like a coming back.
It was.
Yeah.
It was, and it was good for us because we started practicing online. So we were using this app called Jam Kazam where we could practice, and Lee could be at his house, I could be here. Nobody had to be around each other, but we fine-tuned the songs Whereas before, I think we just kind of tried to get together and make it happen.
That's great to hear, because I was wondering, because you kind of started to get together right as COVID hit.
Yeah.
And that's got to be a tough time to launch a band.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And honestly, those first shows were probably, I mean, we all had skills and knew a lot of the songs, but they're like any other new band. You just got to work out the kinks and get used to it. But I will say, just to add this on, the like the last show, I still feel like every time we play, it gets more comfortable and everything just gels better every single time. Like, I had a blast playing the last show. It was,
Me too.
It just seemed perfect and relaxed, and it was that chill, but we were still rocking.
It's funny to hear you guys talk about it, because like I saw your first few shows and I've seen a lot since then, and I've thought every show you've had was great.
Yeah.
But there's something about like, oh, these guys are great, and then each time you're like, oh wow, they're feeling more comfortable, like more songs.
Yep.
Like it's really come together.
Thank you.
And we have, I appreciate that. It's something though that's a little different, because you have all these. I look at all these Richmond bands; they're phenomenal. I mean, I'm almost kind of embarrassed that we're in the same league, quite honestly. But the fact is that none of us have the time to play as much. There's a lot of bands that are playing Friday, Saturday nights every week and just busting it out, and that's their practice, right? We don't. I actually don't want to play more than 7-8 times a year. I really just don't. I've got too much in my life. I want this to be fun. I don't want to turn into a job. But Lee's in 3 bands, Chris is in 2 bands, Gary's in 2 bands. They love doing that, but for us, it works. And then when we get together and we have a great show, it's like, for me, it's like, yeah, that's awesome. It's better than the last.
Yeah, I must tell you, like, because it's pros and cons with like playing a lot, not playing a lot.
Absolutely.
But as a fan, it actually is kind of nice that it's spread out. Because I get excited for each show, because I haven't seen you guys for quite some time, and then like, oh wow, I forgot how much I love them. So I kind of like the sort of frequency in which you do it. You brought this up, but how often do you rehearse?
It's about once a week.
Yeah, once a week.
Yeah.
Once a week, okay. And for your shows, do you guys? There's kind of a spectrum of like some guys like, hey, we roughly know the songs we're going to play, and we just get out there and we kind of like call out songs and wing it. Are you guys like, no, you like script out, we know exactly what song, you practice transitions, and like, it feels like the latter to me, but I was just wondering if it's like, we just sort of played long enough where we know how to do it, or is it like fully kind of rehearsed out?
I would say it is definitely, the set list is written out. So we know, and even when we practice, we go through those set lists. We work through some transitions, but not all transitions, if that makes sense. So in other words, there's certain little key periods during the set list where we're like, we want to go from this song to this song to this song. Let's kind of lock them in and nail those. And then after that, you might take a little break, but then we get to another set of songs where we're like, we want these to be kind of hooked in together, and it keeps the flow. And we do think about even cadence of the set list. Like we really try to end that first set on a real high with a lot of energy. Got it. Because we're going to take a little break, and we don't want people to leave. We want people to stick around. So we really want to hit them hard with some good songs.
So tell me if I've got this right, because one of the things I thought was pretty cool, at least I think I've heard about your band, is after you guys play a show, do you get together to do like a debrief of the show with the whole band?
So I've got a couple of bars in my house, and we get to pick and choose which one we're going to hang out at, depending on the weather. But we do. The good thing too is I record the songs, the shows. So I record. It's 18 tracks, and I can record it right on my iPad, and it's almost like it's like watching film, like watching a football film. We'll listen, and we're never hard on ourselves. We're like, oh, we should do that different, or Delayne's really good at picking songs, and he's the bulldog on it, and he's like, that song just isn't as strong as we need it to be, so let's change it.
Or we'll decide to drop a song. Like, this one's not working. We've heard it 3 times, and every time it's just not gelling.
Do you guys do this like right after your shows each time, or is it a next practice kind of thing?
It's usually the week after.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you called it a debrief, but I would also say it's a beer drinking opportunity as well. So
you got to live up to your name.
You got to live up to the
name.
It gets a little sloppy at the end.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like such a great discipline. I mean, it sounds fun, first of all, but it sounds like such a great discipline of like keeping you guys on your toes of what's really working and what's not.
Well, it's cool because we've become friends.
Yeah.
Some of us have to because we're sort of related, but I think it's great because that gives us time that we can just hang out, and you're not worried about playing at that point in time. So it's cool. We're listening, but it's not playing.
Yes.
So a question, because I know this is always a hard question to answer, at least I think when people have ever asked me in any band I've ever been in, but like when you describe like what kind of a band are you and what genre do you play, how do you describe Hold My Beer?
I always say 80s flashy guitar band.
Yeah.
What about flashy drummer? You have a drum solo with glow sticks. If you haven't seen the show, you need to see the glow sticks. It's worth seeing that.
It's still an 80s flashy guitar.
We also do like today's some country stuff. We do 90s.
That's true.
Yeah, because I was wondering, because I wasn't quite sure how I should describe it.
Yeah.
I kind of like Lee's answer to the question. Yeah, how do you answer it?
I actually say we would do a broad spectrum from 80s, 90s, country. There's no holds barred. It's just fun.
So how, and I don't want to overthink this, but how do you guys select songs you play? Like, do you have a certain process the band goes through? Is it like how do you guys pick?
I think I'm going to give this one to Delayne is the biggest guy about it. He studies songs. He
studies the charts.
He studies the charts.
He's like, this was a top 10 hit back in 1987.
Yeah.
We should be playing this one.
Yeah, and he does. He does, and it's good. And then he'll throw it out. But the good thing about Delayne is he knows, like, for example, if we're going to learn Aha, which we just learned. I never thought I'd sing that song.
It sounded great, by the way.
He'll find versions that we'll agree to.
Get you guys.
So, like, he gave us, like, it was almost like a punk
he did.
rock version.
He gave us 3 versions to choose from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he'll and that's his presentation. And then we all kind of vote on, Now, everybody does have a say. Like, for example, like Rolling Stones, I think the last one, that was a Gary. Gary was like, hey, let's do this. Or Chris, depending on like Goo Goo Dolls or whatever he can sing. And it's funny because we all, from a singer range, we kind of hit the lower end for Delayne, middle for Chris, and I get the stupid stuff that hurts that's in the high range. And it's great to find the songs.
You get the girl ranges.
I do.
Yeah.
But think about it. You listen to like Delayne, he's like Billy Idol. He sounds like Billy Idol.
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
Yeah, because it does seem like you guys share vocals in terms of, I don't know if it's a third, but I can never guess who's going to sing next, and it's...
I don't know if we've chosen...
Nobody cares who sings more. In fact,
what fits.
Just do what fits. Another one, how much do you consider, there are a lot of cover bands in Richmond.
Yeah.
How do you try to select stuff or play stuff to keep you somewhat unique so you're just not like the other bands?
That's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's hard to go against, like, if we play in like any kind of like 80s, 90s guitar rock driven stuff. I mean, the bands that are out there now will just, make us look like child's play. So it's finding a song that fits more our vocals, and our ability to play it. Luckily, we have, like, for example, like Lee, who we can play any drum song. That's not a concern. So I think it's trying to find the songs almost like the B-sides of hits. Like, for example, we'll never play "Don't Stop Believin'," but we play any way you want it.
Right.
You want to play "Don't Stop Believin' now?
Yeah.
No.
There's been a lot of requests, I'm sure, for it.
And that just doesn't happen.
I will add, I think everybody in the band actually just loves music, so we actually go out a fair amount and see other bands. So sometimes we'll say, hey, there are 3 other bands that are playing this same song out right now. Let's not pick that one. Let's pick something else.
Yeah.
Now, you've got some other great musicians in the band, and I was wondering if you spend a little bit, and I think, tell me if I'm right, you've got a sound engineer as well as lighting as well. Could you talk about the other guys that are part of this and why you love performing with them so much?
Yeah. Who do you want to start with?
I don't know. Who do you want to start?
Start with Gary Baily.
I was going to start with Gary too. So
start with Gary.
Yeah.
You hit Gary first. You tell me about Gary.
He's the rhythm section, and the rhythm section sticks together. So there's some truth to that. So I do love playing drums against his bass, and just as a rhythm section, I've found that if you gel with the bass player, the rest of the band, it makes the rest of the band like the little tinky stuff that he does with his little fingers, things like that. It makes them sound good. And so, very honestly, he and I, again, we love music. We'll go out and hang out at different bands and see different shows, and as not only as a musician, but just a friend, it works very well together. So
awesome.
Yep. I think let's hit Chris Dabney.
Yeah.
All right. Because it's the guitar section.
Just playing with your fingers.
It's nothing. His talent. First, he came in and he just wowed me by vocals his ability to play, his attention to detail. So I am not the attention to detail guy. Like, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm close enough, and I go real fast and nobody notices. He learns every part to the nth degree, and he helps us. Like, he helps me sing harmony. I hate singing. He'll get online with me, talking about friendship.
Yeah.
We talk all the time, and he's like, well, let's work on this harmony. I could be, hopefully nobody at work hears this, but in between a conference call, it ends early. I say, I got 5 minutes. He'll call me on the Jam Kazam and he'll work through that. He's that attention to detail, and he cares about it that much. So the fact, it's great because I think he won't mind me saying this. He's not the guy that's going to be running up and down the stage. Everybody has a role, right? He sits there and if everybody else falls all apart, he's got his spot in the stage. He's going to make sure that everybody gets back on track because he's not going to be the one messing up. So that's him.
Yeah, he has seemed like a lot of the glue of the band.
He's the glue.
Yeah.
And Gary and Dabney both love Rush.
They do.
So
They do. That helps a lot.
I had to add that.
I get it.
Yep.
And then you got Amadeus.
Delayne.
Nice.
Delayne, it's funny. Delayne is the guy that I think is nonstop always thinking about how to make Hold My Beer better. He's the guy that's, whether it's the Facebook posts, it's the websites, it's calling people, making sure they know we're playing, thanking them we're playing, coming up with the songs. Like, he's almost like the administrator guy of it, but yet he also sounds like Billy Idol and plays a mean keyboard, right? So it's funny, again, like I keep going back to this. Everybody has a role.
Yeah.
And then, you got this guy who, like I said, there is nothing he can't play. And that adds, so Delayne comes in with the craziest song, and I'm just like, all right, it's me that's got to worry about how to figure this out. I know I don't have to worry about him. So.
Now, you guys have quite a stage show, and you, Troy, as well as Delayne, like super energetic on stage. But some of that comes also through the sound quality and the lighting. Can you talk a little bit about how you do that?
You want to talk about Roger?
Yes. So, sound man, Roger Sager, or Roger Todd Sager, or Todd Sager, whatever you want to call him. Sometimes he even goes by RT. Yeah. So I have known Roger Sager since 1990, I believe.
Oh, wow.
He was in my first real band that played out a lot. He was in the band On Edge.
Yeah.
He was the guitar player. And we played together for, I'd say, probably 6-7 years up and down the East Coast. We literally were in a band, had a van, and traveled up and down the East Coast, played colleges, played bars, played basically any gig we could. That was our full-time job for many years. And anyway, after On Edge broke up, and I eventually met this guy and started playing with him, over the years, Sager got into sound engineering, and he even did a lot of the sound while we were in On Edge too.
Yeah.
And so he had that skill set, and so he is he's got a wealth of experience, does it for many different bands, has done it at churches, and he's just he's got a great ear and a great skill for it, and he's been with us, and he owns it. Like we say, hey, this is your instrument, it is the sound, so go for it. And
I imagine it's got to feel like a wonderful security blanket to have him there, knowing that whatever's coming out the front of the house is going to sound good.
We don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Like I said, and believe it or not, he's like an equal member of the band.
Yeah.
So we do, you nailed it. That is his instrument.
Yeah.
He can make us or break us by a tweak of knob, man. The I suck knob.
Yeah.
He can easily turn that, and he cares. And it's very similar for our light guy. So Dave Kibler, same band, was the light guy for those guys. And so those two guys basically kind of transitioned with us all the way. In fact, also the guy who, he's kind of like the road manager, Jeremy, also. Sullivan.
Also with
And they all kind of worked through On Edge to Leon to this band. It was automatic. It's like, who do we trust to take care of us while we're playing to make us look good, which Dave programs the lights, the scenes, make sure that he knows what song goes with what, blacks out when it needs to be blacked out. It's phenomenal to have that too. We don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. And then Jeremy just takes care of us.
I gotta tell you, that's great. I mean, one, just great living in Richmond and getting to, have all these guys you're friends with and continue to get to do this for, a big portion of your life has got to be awesome.
That's what
to
I was
do
gonna
with
say.
your friends.
They're long-term friends. And
Yeah.
that's what's really cool about all of it. So.
And I'd have to be remiss if I didn't mention Trevor, my son,
Son,
who's my
yeah.
guitar tech, who make sure my guitar stuff is done because I like to bring a couple.
I've noticed there maybe
he does a good job.
He goes by Moose, by the way.
He also picks up all the speakers. Like he's a moose, so he's our road. That's his road crew.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it's a little bit of a family affair. That's pretty cool. Cool. Hey, Lee, I'll embarrass you now because I have to ask you about the drum solos.
Uh-oh.
And I grew up in an era. I'm also a geeky Rush fan.
Yeah.
I've seen Van Halen multiple times back in the day, and I know what it takes a special kind of talent to play a drum solo that people will actually enjoy listening to.
Right.
And I was thinking about it, and particularly for folks, without giving too much away, for folks who haven't potentially seen you, how I would describe it. And every time I just come up with one word, I'm like, it's spectacular. Like, it is something to behold. And I had a question for you, which is, like, how much work do you put in to actually, like, rehearsing a solo, or how much of it is just, like, what you happen to feel that night?
Yes.
Because it's got to be hard on your body, because it's like, wow. So could you talk a little bit about, like, how it happened?
I thought you were going to say it's just loud.
Okay, not at all.
So first, I appreciate it. I used to do drum solos, early on in the 90s when I was in my 20s, and it was very easy at that point. And we did them all the time, and we played a lot. So we would play 3 to 4 times a night, and I used to do drum solos and love them. And they were very popular back then too, because it was coming right out of the 80s.
Yeah.
And like Troy, I kind of took a break where I didn't play in a band that did a lot of solos. And then when we got Hold My Beer back, together, he said, "Well, you should do a drum solo again." I was kind of like, I don't know, they're not that popular right now. Although there are bands like Greta Van Fleet and some of these bands that are out there doing them again. So I'm like,
bringing it back.
They're coming back.
Yeah.
But I do work on them a lot. When I know a show's coming, I've got to spend. I probably work through a drum solo nightly for the 2 weeks prior to a show. It takes a lot out of me, and if I haven't kind of worked my body out to be prepared for it, I just won't go over well. So I literally need to kind of build up the stamina to be able to do it, because we play 3 hours with a 15-minute break, and all the songs are like they're just kind of balls to the wall, fast and heavy, and 80s licks, and we play 4 hours. So by the time I get to the drum solo, I'm usually tired already.
Yeah.
And so I really do have to kind of work my body out and get used to it, so I can do it during the show.
I tell you, it shows. It's it's rare that someone says wow, I really love the drum solo, but it is. I look forward to it every time.
Oh, thank you.
I really do, and I'm not the only one. Lots of folks have mentioned it to me who are at the shows.
It's fun to watch that, because I do feel like it's coming back, and it's somebody who's lived through it. It's good to see it, and we have kids now that are coming to the show.
Yeah.
And everybody's got their phone.
Yeah.
Just filming him do that stuff is cool.
I thought you liked it because you got to take a break and drink some beer.
There is that too.
Oh, okay.
There is absolutely. I can stretch. I'm over there getting cramps.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to transition to what is my favorite part of the show, which, unbeknownst to you guys, I actually went out and talked to a bunch of your super fans.
Oh, good God.
And solicited if they could be here with me and say, what questions would you want me to ask the guys? So are you ready for what I'm now calling the fan question lightning round?
Go for it.
All right, so here we go. So the first one is for Troy, and this is from Kristen and Glen Allen. And she said, if you could be a guitarist in any popular band, which band would it be and why?
Journey, Neil Schon. Hands down, I think was one of the best guitar players. Melodic, but yet speed.
I am not at all surprised by that answer, nor will anybody who knows this band. The next one is from Brian, also in Glen Allen. It's for you, Lee. It said it's a 2-part question.
Oh, no.
Which is, what song do you enjoy playing the most, and which one is the hardest for you to play?
I was going to say it's one and the same, but it's probably not, now that I think about it. Limelight is one of my favorites to play because it is Rush, who was, again, that is the band that got me into drums. Neil Peart was my idol growing up. Limelight's the favorite. hardest to play?
Foo Fighters?
I was gonna say Foo Fighters.
Which song is it?
Everlong.
Everlong.
Yeah, it's probably, and it's because it is fast and has the big fills. And again, it's at the end of the first set after they've killed me for 20 other songs. So that's probably the toughest one for me. But for that reason, it's tiring.
All right. So I've got a couple of questions from Emily in Richmond. And the first one, I think she's trying to stir up some trouble in the band. And she directed it to you, Lee, maybe because she thinks you'll be the most honest.
Oh, that's probably true.
But she said, who is the biggest diva in HMB?
Oh, man. I know I can rule out 2 people quickly.
Go ahead and share it.
So it's either Delayne or Troy, both the kind of the lead people that like to be in front of that crowd and really kind of strut their stuff out on stage. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, neck and neck. Well, this wasn't directed to you, Troy, so you don't get to answer.
That.
But
yeah,
there you go. There you go, Emily.
Delayne.
You have to think about the
Delayne.
Lee's answer. So she's got a second question for both of you. And this is, if you could pick one album that you had to listen to, so the only album you can listen to for a whole year, what album would it be and why? And Troy, why don't you go first?
As Exit Stage Left.
What?
Yeah. Every song on there I could just listen to over and over again.
Yeah.
It's so diverse. And it's live. I love live albums. Now he's mad.
Yeah, you stole his answer, or is it? What do you think, Lee?
I was just surprised you picked Rush.
I admit I thought it'd be Journey.
That's exactly what I thought.
Yeah.
I was sure it was going to be Journey.
Yeah.
I'm kind of disappointed.
I can't keep you always knowing
Yeah.
Troy Miller.
I would pick Journey Escape.
So ridiculous.
Okay, no. I would pick Rush Moving Pictures.
Moving Pictures? Yeah.
That's just, you knew I love Rush.
Yeah.
That's just a classic album, and it's awesome.
Yeah. When you, obviously you're both Rush fans, did you go through phases where you liked certain eras better, or were you always sort of in the, because X Stage Left is kind of that Moving Pictures, maybe Permanent Waves sort of time frame.
Yep.
Did you ever like the 2112s of the day? Or?
Oh, yeah. I was so into Rush, I would go down on Broad Street to a store that I'm not sure was legitimate, and it had bootlegs.
This is on camera,
Yeah,
Cut that
I'm
out.
sure the store's not there anymore.
Okay.
It had bootlegs, and this is a teenager. I was a teenager, and it had bootlegs of all these Rush albums, and I'd go buy the bootlegs even of early Rush with stuff that was not released out to the public, and I loved them that much. And so I was, early on. I stopped some of their later albums, but I came back to them.
Yeah. I liked just about every album, even when they started getting a little more on the keyboard side.
Yep.
I think Snakes and Arrows was probably when I was like, I went to the concert.
Yeah.
Had to go to it, but I think that's when I was kind of like, it starts to sound a little bit the same.
Yeah.
I mean, I bought an amp because Alex Lifeson sounded so good. I was like, I need a Hughes and Kettner. I gotta have that.
I had a feeling if I let it happen, this would become a Rush podcast and not a Hold My Beer
It seems to
podcast.
be.
I
thought the same thing.
Yeah. Cool. So moving on from the fam questions, one of the things I really love seeing in local Richmond bands is when they tie their gigs to stuff that actually gives back to the Richmond community. And as I was sort of going through thinking about what to ask you guys, I was going through your Facebook page and I saw the coolest Facebook video post from Delayne, where he is actually with Nutsy of the Richmond Squirrels.
Oh, yeah.
And he is talking about a show that you guys did, I think with the Richmond Flying Squirrels, I want to say Mainline Brewery,
Yep.
and the ALS Foundation. And I was curious, one, I thought it was awesome. And how'd that come to be? And can you talk a little bit about that whole partnership that you
Again,
did?
this Delayne who knows everybody, and he has a lot of contacts, and he has a lot of talking about somebody that cares about all different causes. It's Delayne.
Yeah.
So he's got contacts with ALS, and they just matched it up. And I think it was a raffle that when you got there, you could buy the raffle, and you could pitch the first ball.
Yeah.
With the Squirrels game and everything. I almost called them the Braves. That was ages ago. So that was one of them. But I mean, quite honestly, Delayne's always looking for something like that.
Yeah.
We played the show at the Great American Ranch,
Yep.
and that was for a cause called Mason's Toy Box, which gives toys to underprivileged kids. And then we're doing Toys for Tots in December, and that's at the Tuckahoe Moose Lodge. I think it's who we're doing that with. And that's gonna be a really cool event because you bring a toy, You get beer, food, and hold my beer.
And he usually coordinates it with the brewery or the
Yeah.
bar or pub, where somehow there's a donation that is provided to the charity.
I think it's fantastic. I love that you guys do it. Hey, one of the things I personally love about the Richmond music scene is that, particularly for local artists, is there are a ton of venues now to play in.
Yeah.
And I was curious, from your guys' perspective, what are some of your favorite places to play and why?
Obviously, the Poorhouse.
Yeah, well, not everybody who's listening probably knows about the Poorhouse, so
Yeah.
maybe talk about why.
So we've got connections. Bobby, he used to be at the what was it? He was at
Canal
Sunset
Club.
Grill and Canal Club,
Club,
and used to work with us in Leon.
Yeah.
He was trying to get us to show up as Leon there, and I was like, well, we got a new band, Hold My Beer. He goes, let's do it. And I said, well, I only want to play 4 times a year. He goes, let's do it now. And he got the calendar out, and he goes, we're going to book y'all every quarter at least. And we actually have got a couple more gigs there. So that's kind of like
Your home base.
Bobby's just been great. Those guys have been phenomenal. Rob down there too. He's been phenomenal. And then what's the other? We did
Mainline Brewery. Looking at Great American Ranch. We played there once. Looking at the one in Mechanicsville.
Yep.
So a lot of breweries.
Yeah. Are there any places that you haven't played that you're really hoping to play at some point or trying to get in?
The National.
Even though this is called small venue music.
Sorry. I mean, we played JJ's too.
JJ's.
Love playing
That's right.
JJ's.
Yeah.
What a great owner. What a great place to play. So I'm trying to think if there's any place that we haven't thought about. Like I said, I think we're looking at Great American Ranch.
I mean, maybe you guys, when you're only playing a certain amount of times a year, you don't need
It's
that
hard.
many.
It's hard, but we want to play because what's cool is that a lot of people will reach out to Delayne and be like, "Hey, we want you to play here. We want you to play there," and we're like, "We'll get there. We'll figure it out." And yeah, so it's Richmond is phenomenal when it comes to being able to go see any music on any weekend.
It's great, isn't it?
Thursdays even. You know?
Yeah.
It's great, and there's so many great bands out there. Like I said, Richmond is. I felt like back when we were playing in the early '90s, it was like the Pat McGee's. You had everybody like that fighting Gravity, and that felt like it kind of. I didn't hear too much. Maybe that's just because I wasn't in it. I was raising kids, but that could be it too. But I feel like there's a resurgence of live music here,
And it seems like a lot more venues that can handle live music too,
yeah,
which is nice.
agreed.
Cool. Hey, I know there. Speaking of, I know there are a lot of musicians that'll be watching the show, and I was wondering if you guys would want to give any advice for anyone who's just starting a band and kind of looking to put one together and book gigs. And it's a little bit of take your mind back to when you were just trying to get started. What advice would you give for folks?
So I can probably speak from experience at work. There's some folks that just started a band.
Yeah.
And the guy actually emailed me and said, "Can you give me any advice?" Just like you said. And I said, "Yeah, sure, certainly." I said, "Come up with a full repertoire of songs that you can play out first, practice them." And then in terms of gigs, I said, you just need to get your foot in the door in a lot of places. So I said, don't expect to go out and play for a lot of money. Get your foot in the door by going out and playing at a fairly cheap price, bring in a crowd, and then from there you can kind of start working, talking to the clubs and seeing if you can get some funding for what you're doing. And said, until then though, think of it as you're kind of on the ground floor, just getting your name out there and things like that and getting a crowd.
Yeah. Any thoughts from you?
I think you hit on everything. I think the only thing I would say is that you don't have to be a virtuoso. You don't have to be the most amazing musician. Just learn the songs and learn good songs that match what you do.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. It's like, don't go out if you don't have a Geddy Lee voice, don't sing Geddy Lee. Bring it back to Rush. But if you have, like a John Denver voice, sing like John Denver, sing like Billy Idol, but find something that fits. And don't try to do something that's not you.
So as you guys think about Hold My Beer and kind of look out to the future, what aspirations do you have for the band?
Beer.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Holding it.
Yeah. By the way, they don't have to be grand. I'm like what do you hope happens?
This is it.
Yeah.
I want to have a great time with a good group of guys, as long as I can do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that may be the issue. When you get like 56, that I'm 56 tomorrow.
You shouldn't have said that on the air.
I mean,
Happy birthday, George.
I'm going to be 46.
So, sorry.
No. That's fine. That's it.
I was going to say it's to have fun. Honestly, we don't have any grandiose vision to be stars or anything. It literally is to go out and have fun and enjoy hanging out with people I like to hang out with.
I mean, one of the great things, at least haven't seen you multiple times, is when you already bring a big crowd. So you fill the venues that you play. You guys look like you're having a great time when you play, which makes everybody else who's watching feel like they're having a great time. And that's like one of the reasons why I find you guys so exciting to watch, is both like quality musicianship, but really it's like, it looks like a bunch of friends having a great time that I wish I were a part of, kind of feel. So it's good. So I am. Hey, I've got one more question for you, because I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to plug some of your upcoming shows. So could you share, what's coming up the next couple of months for folks who might want to come see you?
Yeah, so we have an upcoming show in July at the Poorhouse, July 28th. And go figure, October 13th at the Poorhouse again.
Poorhouse, yeah.
And then we have the December 9th, which will be the Toys for Tots, and that's at the Tuckahoe Moose Lodge. We are working on a couple of more dates. I think there's maybe one in September. Hopefully that'll come out. So just keep on the Facebook page, and we'll be announcing that.
Awesome. Well, hey guys, I can't thank you enough for joining the podcast. I think I'm a huge fan, and for anyone who's watching, I strongly encourage you to catch one of the shows that is upcoming. These guys have such energy when they play. They bring me back, I admit, based on your set list, to some of the happier times in my youth from the song selections that you have. And you're really a joy to watch. So thanks so much for spending time and sharing a lot about the band. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for doing this, man. Really appreciate it. Cheers, guys. This was awesome.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
What?
Thank you for listening to today's show. Please like or subscribe to our podcast to be notified of each new episode, and follow us on all of our social media channels. If you are a local Richmond band or venue owner and you'd like to be featured on the show, please feel free to send us an email at smallvenuemusic@gmail.com. We'd love feedback on each episode, so please leave a comment to let us know how we're doing. Thanks again for listening.